Hello and welcome to Granada Reports, live with the latest across the northwest.
Hello there on the programme this evening.
Every fibre of my body was telling me not to do it. But I knew I had to, the state that she was in.
Reliving the moments he killed his wife to end her suffering. Now Graham Mansfield wants the law changed to give people like Diane the hope of dying with dignity.
It comes as a comfort to people that are in that position, that they know they don't have to be going through tortuous last weeks, hanging on to what?
We'll be hearing from both sides of the assisted dying debates.
Also tonight, what's next for Rochdale's troubled Seven Sisters? Residents have new hope for the future.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
Unveiling Blackpool's very own tribute to the late great master of mirth, Sir Ken Dodd.
On the mic, it's Mika, the latest new talent to grace Granada introducing.
And as we helter-skelter into the school holidays, what does the weather have in store for us? I'll be back later on with a full weather forecast.
Well, first tonight, the heartbreaking testimony of a loving husband telling us what went through his mind seconds before he killed his terminally ill wife.
73-year-old Graham Mansfield says every fibre of his being told him not to do it. He and Diane had been married for 40 years.
Well, yesterday, Mr. Mansfield was given a suspended jail sentence after being convicted of the manslaughter of 71-year-old Diane, who was severely ill with cancer. The court was told the couple had a suicide pact, but his attempts to end his own life failed.
Tonight, Graham Mansfield is again calling for a new law to allow assisted dying in this country. This report now from Tim Scott contains some distressing detail.
I said to Diane, "Are you ready, Diane?" She said, "Yeah." So I did it. Every fibre of my body was telling me not to do it. But I knew I had to, the state that she was in.
Reliving the moment he took his wife's life, but Graham Mansfield says he was following her wishes. It came after Diane Mansfield had been diagnosed with terminal lung cancer in 2020. As her health got worse by the day, the couple entered into a suicide pact.
Diane said to me, "When things get too bad for me, will you kill me?" And I said, "Yes, I will, Diane." We were in tears, you know. And I said, "Yes, I will, Diane, but on one condition, that I die with you." And that's where we made our suicide pact.
Diane and Graham were married for over 40 years. They shared everything together and were in a happy, loving relationship to the end.
I said to her, "Diane, if somebody was to say to you in your very early 20s that you're going to get married, you're going to have a wonderful, happy marriage, but it's all going to stop when you're 71, what would you say?" And she said, "I'd grab it with both hands."
Their suicide pact was sealed, and in March last year, Graham killed Diane, cutting her throat as she sat in their garden in Hale.
I came round, sat next to her, put my arm round her. I said, "Diane, what have I done?" Told her I loved her. And then I said, "Well, Diane, it's my turn now." I could see the Beetham Tower lights, you know, the red lights on top. And I thought, that's the last thing I'm going to see on this planet. And with that, I did it.
Graham injured himself but didn't die. Laying in a pool of blood in the kitchen, he called 999. He was taken to hospital and then arrested for the murder of his wife.
I understand precisely what he did and why he did it. I don't hold any malice against Graham whatsoever, and I'll continue to follow his friendship over the coming years.
Diane's brother Peter has supported Graham throughout the court case. He was in a similar predicament with his own wife, who died 10 years ago.
She had asked me to end her life because she couldn't stand the pain any longer. and I could not take that last step. Graham did, and that was it. So I completely understood his mindset, where he was and why he did it.
Graham Mansfield walked free from court yesterday after receiving a 2-year suspended sentence for manslaughter. He's now calling for a change in the law to legalise assisted suicide in cases like his.
It comes as a comfort to people that are in that position, that they know they don't have to be going through tortuous last weeks, hanging on to what? You should be in that position to be able to say, I want to die.
Well, a short time ago, we spoke to Sarah Whitten, the chief executive of the group Dignity in Dying.
Oh, I asked for her reaction to the very sad case of Graham and Diane Mansfield.
Well, I think it was the right decision by the judge, clearly, that Graham acted out of compassion. But what an awful tragedy for this family to go through, and particularly given that they could have had the choice of assisted dying in other countries. So if they'd been in California, if they'd been in Australia, then the choice would have been there for dying people to be able to control the manner and timing of their death. So once again, we can see that clearly dying people should not have to suffer against their wishes, and something needs to change in British law.
How common is this type of case when a couple decide to go together in this way because one or both of them are so terribly ill?
One Britain goes to Dignitas to have an assisted death every week. I do know that 17 people a day are suffering as they're dying, despite having the best palliative care. And we do know that that people are taking the law into their own hands. So we know that the ONS, the Office of National Statistics, did some research in April which showed that people who are terminally ill are over twice more likely to take their own life through suicide than the general population. So there's clearly a problem here, and people are trying to seek to control deaths that are unbearable to them. And in the absence of an assisted dying law, which would give people somewhere to turn, it would encourage open, transparent, honest conversations about what their options are, then people are forced into these kinds of acts.
But how easy would a law like that be to implement? I mean, it would be very difficult. There's so many areas of doubt.
Euthanasia is where somebody else administers assisted dying. Assisted dying is basically around the person themselves, the patient themselves deciding how they want to die and taking the medication. And those laws are in the US, they're in New Zealand, they're in Australia. To your point about how difficult these laws are, 200 million people throughout the world now have access to assisted dying laws. And that means that dying people in those countries don't have to suffer at the end of life.
How confident are you, Sarah, that we may see a change in the law in this country?
I'm confident. I think that you can see from the laws around the world, there are discussions going on in Scotland, in Jersey, in the Isle of Man and the Republic of Ireland, that they've legalised assisted dying in Spain, in Austria and so on and so forth in Europe. So clearly this is something that is coming down the track for the UK.
Sarah, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, the pro-life campaign group Care Not Killing has also been speaking about this story. They oppose assisted dying, and this is what their spokesperson told us earlier.
I've worked as a doctor in a hospice, and I've seen people coming in with very badly controlled pain who say, just let me die, there's nothing you can do. But actually within a fairly short while we can turn things around. They're comfortable, and actually they're using the final weeks of their life to good effect. And they're very glad that they weren't given the opportunity to take their life.
Well, it's a huge issue of public debate that continues to really divide opinion.
And if you've been affected by any of the issues raised in our coverage tonight, there are helplines on our website. That's all at itv.com/Granada.
Well, next tonight, the parents' heartfelt plea to break the silence protecting the person who killed their teenage son.
Kenny Carter was just 16. He died after being stabbed on a street in Stratford in Greater Manchester 6 months ago.
Kenny's mum and dad don't want anyone else prosecuted. They want those who saw the incident to tell the police who took their son's life. This report from our reporter, Tasha Kachiri.
couple of fireworks, a few balloons at the cemetery, probably sing along, and there's nothing we can do.
Not the birthday they imagined. This Sunday, Kenny Carter would have been 17. Instead of celebrating with him, his parents are calling for his killer to come forward.
Get up every day and wait for the phone to ring, see, feeling is there going to be any news today, but nothing. And we just feel like we're sat here and nothing's happening to the person that's actually took our son's life away from him.
There's nothing we can do, really, apart from justice. That's all we want for him, is justice.
Kenny Carter died on January 22nd after being stabbed in the chest while walking home on Thirlmere Avenue in Stretford. His family ran to help him.
Me, Glenn and all his siblings stood and watched him dying on the floor. And all Kenny wanted to do that day was go out and have some food with friends.
Police believe it was a revenge attack. Kenny's friends had been involved in a fight with a rival group the night before he was killed, but he wasn't involved. 6 months on from his murder, there have been 14 arrests. 10 young people aged between 12 and 17 are still under investigation, but no one has been charged. The police say they need more people to come forward.
We know who was involved in the murder, and I'm confident that out of the 12 people that we know were there, we are confident that we know who 10 of them are. There are people out there who I know were present, who witnessed it. There are people who I know not only witnessed it, but have then spoken to other people. It's those people that I need to come forward and speak to us.
For Kenny's parents, they say they want the one who stabbed him to be brought to justice, and then they can start to grieve.
There was a few youths involved, but there was only one person that actually stabbed my Kenny. The friends that were with this boy, I don't want, their families to be dragged through what they're going to be dragged through, just through the silliness of one boy, and I'm urging them parents of these children, please talk to your children and make them see it's not about grassing on someone, it's about doing the right thing and giving me and Kenny's dad and his siblings and the family some sort of closure so we can mourn properly for Kenny, because we've not even started mourning. We've not.
Tasha Kachiri, ITV News, Stretford.
Well, thanks to Kenny's parents for speaking to us, and I do hope they do get that closure at some point in the future. Well, next, it is a question that has dominated local politics in Rochdale for 5 years. What is going to happen to the so-called Seven Sisters flats?
Well, the fate of the iconic tower blocks has been in doubt ever since plans to demolish 4 of them were announced as part of a regeneration plan.
Well, tonight we can exclusively reveal they could yet be saved after the council announced it was exploring the possibility of buying them back. Emma Sweeney reports.
They're known as homes in the sky. And for 5 decades, Rochdale's Seven Sisters have dominated the local landscape. Towering above the former mill town, these social homes are considered by many to be a source of great pride.
There's a real mix of people here, lots of different ethnic groups and races, and there's some older people, some vulnerable people that work and live alongside each other really, really well.
You get to know other people when you're living on the same landing as some people, and when you're in the lifts you talk to each other, so it is very communal.
10 years ago, the council transferred ownership of these flats over to the Rochdale Borough-wide Housing Co-op. It was a way for them to help clear off government debts. But for the last 5 years, the blocks have been at the centre of a huge row. They're in need of an upgrade, but the landlord says refurbishing all 7 would cost around £90 million, and that's unviable. Instead, they want to reduce the Seven Sisters to 3 on the promise it would open the door to new modern homes.
So there'll be a mixture of family homes and flats on the footprints of the demolished blocks, and they will be modern and they will be comparable to the new builds that are going up just a couple of minutes away on Lower Failing.
RBH say its regeneration plans will see an overall increase of social homes in Rochdale town centre, but the co-op admits the proposals for the Seven Sisters would see significantly fewer homes on that site. Now, we don't know exactly how many, but their latest estimate stands at around 180, and for some, the loss of those social homes there is simply unacceptable.
That just can't be common sense. And if you're one of those kids tonight that's going to sleep in a hostel, then
they should be ashamed of themselves.
It's a row that's rumbled on for 5 years, but today it seems to have turned a corner. The government's paved the way for the council to own and manage its own housing again, and today the authority announced it was commissioning a report looking into the possibility of bringing the Seven Sisters back in-house.
We need to be tackling the housing crisis head on, and bringing back Seven Sisters into council control would be one of the greatest ways that we could do this moving forward. We've got 8,000 applicants on the waiting list right now. That's an equivalent up to nearly 22,000 people that we have on our waiting list. We can't have that in Rochdale Borough.
The council did have these flats, and up until 10 years ago they owned them before handing over ownership, so some people will be a bit confused by this and wondering if they can even trust the council.
Well, what's happened in the past, I think the Labour group of councillors that are here in Rochdale Borough have a commitment to see that we have council houses within our borough again.
For some here, today's announcement is seen as a huge step forward, but RBH say it's misleading, adding it was unfair for the council to suggest it has an alternative plan when there is none forthcoming.
It's pie in the sky. They would have to provide somewhere in the region of 70 or 80 million to give the properties the refurbishment that's required to give them a decent home standard. Where are the council going to get that money from? If only.
Leaders say that's exactly why the report's been commissioned, to work out one way or another if the Seven Sisters will remain as one. Emma Sweeney, ITV News, Rochdale.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted on all the developments on that story. But for now, here's what's still to come on the ITV News at 6:30 with Lucrezia.
Coming up, chaos and queuing as the summer getaway stalls. In Dover, a critical incident is declared and thousands of people are going nowhere. COVID cases on the rise again, but how concerned should we all be? Why Prince Harry has gone head-to-head with the Home Office. And countdown to the Commonwealth Games will be catching up with superstar swimmer Adam Peaty. Join me for those stories and much more at 6:30.
Yeah, good to see Lucrezia got the floral memo.
She did. It's all about the florals these days. I'm glad you noticed, Gamal.
Floral Fridays, Floral Fridays.
Get your tie sorted
next
for Monday, won't we?
Next week. Next, the name of Sir Ken Dodd will always be associated with Knotty Ash and Liverpool.
And, of course, Tickling Sticks. But he was a comic who was loved everywhere, not least by audiences at the beautiful Grand Theatre in Blackpool, which was apparently one of his favourite venues.
Yeah, and it was at the Grand today that Sir Ken's widow, Lady Anne Dodd, and some of his best mates saw a lasting tribute to him unveiled. Our correspondent, Rob Smith, was there.
Woo! Oh, isn't that wonderful?
On stage again, immortalised in bronze, Sir Ken Dodd. Generations of theatregoers will see him and his tickling stick in a theatre he saved for future generations. Blackpool's Grand was threatened with closure in the 1970s. The legendary comedian played fundraising shows to protect it.
Ken Dodd!
Part of a 63-year, 2,000-show career in the resort. His widow, Lady Anne Dodd, thankful to the theatre and sculptor.
He wasn't a big head. He was a performer. He was proud of what he'd achieved, but he'd be just so honoured. He was quite a humble person in many ways. It was so perfect. The only thing, the hair looked a bit flat, so I said, could you just tickle up the hair a little? But he said one of the hardest parts was actually the tickling stick.
Anybody in from Lancashire? Oh, well, you'll recognise tripe when you see it.
Sir Ken's performances were recognised as masterclasses by many fellow stars. Stars who waited on every word of shows stretching past midnight. Stars who had to be at today's unveiling.
I think he meant a lot to people on their holidays, because they'd look forward not only to going to Blackpool or to wherever, but to go and see Doddy. And I remember going, I think it was at the Philharmonic Hall one time, and he'd been on stage for about 2.5 hours. And it was this old couple, and they were coming out, and one of them said to the other, "Oh, that's the best show I've ever seen in my life." And I said, "Excuse me, that's only the interval."
The resort honoured Doddy with his own patch of its comedy carpet in 2011, celebrating the nation's best-loved jokes and catchphrases. Now theatre staff feel they're playing their part too.
It just brings back brilliant memories of watching 7-hour-long performances and missing the last tram home, you know. It's really great that his spirit's going to live on here in the theatre, in the dress circle entrance forever, actually, for people to enjoy.
Part of a performance space he adored is now always his. Rob Smith, ITV News, Blackpool.
Oh, he changed feather dusters for all of us forever, didn't he? The legend Ken Dodd.
You certainly did. Now we're still searching for someone to represent our region at the Daily Mirror Pride of Britain Awards.
Yeah, it's a glitzy awards night where the stars are ordinary people who've done extraordinary things. And it's where this year's national fundraiser of the year will be revealed.
If you'd like to nominate someone, head to our website, itv.com/Pride of Britain. You can only nominate individuals and they must be aged 18 or over. The closing date is Friday the 12th of August and full terms and conditions can be found on our website.
Well, on to football now and some sad news. The former Liverpool chairman and owner David Moores has died at the age of 76. In his 16 years as chairman, he saw the club win 10 major honours and became honorary life president after selling his majority stake in the club in 2007.
In their latest pre-season friendly, Liverpool's new £65 million signing, Darwin Núñez, started his goal-scoring career for the Reds in style. He got 4 as Liverpool thrashed RB Leipzig of the Bundesliga 5-0 in Germany. The Uruguayan striker who signed for Liverpool in the summer got all of his goals after coming on as a substitute at half-time.
And in Super League, second-placed Wigan Warriors suffered a big defeat away at Leeds Rhinos. The home team ran in 7 tries to Wigan's 2 in a 42-12 victory. Warriors remain 4 points behind leaders St Helens, who'll play on Sunday.
OK, next from Super League to Seoul. How about that for a segue?
That is smooth. Proper smooth.
Yeah, smoothish. We're talking about a soul singer from Manchester who's getting ready for the biggest gig of her life.
Yeah, Mika Miller's funded her own debut album. It's called Heaven Knows, and she's going to launch it with a headline show backed by an 8-piece band.
But at one point of her singing career, it was all in doubt when she broke her back. She's been chatting to our correspondent, Elaine Wilcox, for the latest in our series, Granada, introducing.
Oh, this preacher man, what he said.
Mika Miller fell in love with Stevie Wonder as a child. Her debut album is a mix of influences from soul to Motown.
You know, really taken a leap of faith with this record and invested everything that I had in it, you know, and it's a soul record, but it certainly draws on sort of blues, jazz.
Just for your life, you weren't made to a 9 to 5. The Lord gave you and it saves you. Stand up, jump for your life, and a preacher man.
With Preacher Man, one of my favourite songs, you can hear gospel in there too. But there have also been comparisons with Amy Winehouse and Adele.
Apparently so. I really loved this. Somebody commented on similarities to Adele and Amy Winehouse, but with that Manchester Northern grit.
So girl, don't waste your life away. It's a do-round, got nothing but today. Know that you belong.
As a youngster, she said she could project but couldn't really sing. Penning her own songs helped develop her incredible vocals.
It was really through songwriting, I suppose, that I developed and honed found my voice, I suppose. I've still got a little songbook actually from when I was a kid.
Sometimes we lose a little faith, but this I know,
You wrote Girl on International Women's Day to empower women, and you can see how you emotionally connect with the songs.
The songs are incredibly honest, and I think that kind of gives you the ability to sing them from the heart.
I'm alive in the night, or tonight open yours into my arms.
Mika broke her back on a trampoline while making her album. She needed surgery and feared for her voice. but it also encouraged her to work with some of the industry greats.
Brian Malouf in LA, who worked with Stevie Wonder and Michael Jackson on Bad, has been very complimentary about you.
I was able to work with Brian, who was absolutely amazing in mixing the record. A number of other musicians, Jerry Barnes, who did bass on Preacher Man, who does Chic and played on a lot of Whitney Houston records, and you know, some of the guys who played with Prince.
Mika filmed Heaven Knows at Manchester's Albert Hall and will be back in September to launch her album in a headline show.
Certainly for somebody who's from Manchester and who's come from a background of performing at a lot of the small venues across the city, this will be a really triumphant moment for me, so I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, another rising star. Here's Joe with the weather.
Why do I need a shower? I've been out in the rain.
The faster you go, the sooner you'll be out. You'll save water too.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Thank you. A very good evening to you. Welcome to the weekend. A rather mixed affair weather-wise. Feeling quite humid over the next couple of days, and there will be a drop of rain around. Of course, much needed rain. It could be quite damp and breezy. Next week will be cooler. There'll be some sunshine around, but things will settle down weather-wise with high pressure building in from Tuesday. As we can see, the air is warm at the moment over the country, but low pressure abounds, so it's unsettled with spells of rain this weekend. And then as the high pressure builds in from Tuesday, we'll pull in some slightly cooler air from the north, so it'll settle down. Many of us, of course, on school holidays now, but it won't be quite as hot. Now back to today. It hasn't felt hot at all. It's been grey, it's been damp, and tomorrow will be rather breezy. As we go into tonight, showery rain will peter out through the early hours of Saturday morning. Skies could just clear a little bit, and temperature-wise, maybe rurally 9 or 10, but mostly staying in double figures as we go through towards dawn. On to tomorrow. The sun will be rising at 5:10, setting at 9:24. If you're out and about early tomorrow, you'll probably see a bit of brightness, some sunshine, but then it clouds up quite quickly from the west. By mid-morning, we're beginning to see rain moving into the Isle of Man, and then it's moving eastwards across most places. Turning lighter tomorrow afternoon, more patchy, but it's damp, it's breezy, it's a drizzly old day, and feeling humid at best, maybe 21 or 22 degrees tomorrow afternoon. Looking ahead to Sunday, a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers, and still a warm feel to the weather at around 23 Celsius. Monday is unsettled and cool. Those temperatures are tailing off a little bit next week. But from Tuesday, the high pressure will build in and it should settle down, giving us some usable weather as we go through the middle part of the week. Here's the pollen.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Hello, summer. Piri sponsors ITV Pollen Count.
So the good news is pollen levels are tapering off now. Even in the sunshine over the next few days, probably not exceeding moderate. And on Monday, it's cloudy and damp, so it'll be down to low. Have a cracking weekend, whatever you're doing. Bye-bye.
Joe, thank you. And finally, to a man who's trying to do something very special.
Yeah, this is the appropriately named Adam Diver from Fleetwood, setting off early this morning on a massive challenge. He was aiming to become the first person to swim the 32 nautical miles from the UK to the Isle of Man.
Well, as you can see, he made some progress, but sadly his support team decided to call the swim off this afternoon due to bad weather and heavy seas.
Oh, Adam doesn't sound like a man who'll give up, though, so we'll report back if and when he decides to give it another go.
Yeah, and we'll be looking forward to that because he's an inspirational guy.
He certainly is. At least you'll be home in time for a pint now, Adam. You'll make last orders tonight.
Enjoy, mate. Bye-bye.
Good night.